This is Vintage Cube in 15 minutes or less. Let's start the clock. Alright, so we start with the best removal spell in the entire cube in Swords to Plowshares. Happy to take it. Only sad that we have to pass into Johnny here, but hey, you do what you have to do. Honestly, this is just a spell pierce for me. There's nothing I really want here, so I'm just going to default to the cheapest card in the pack. Here we actually have a powerful card in Fable. This is just a slam dunk. I'm still not really committed to anything. Another kind of medium pack. I'm just going to take a white card and move on. If we wind up in Azorius, Displacer Kitten plus Teferi could be an infinite combo, but we don't really care. This isn't close to a formed idea yet. And now we just see kind of a late Luminous Aspirant. It's fine. This would be more aggressive than any of our other picks unless we wind up going with the Fable. Breach is super tempting here because it actually works pretty well with the Displacer Kitten combo. If we get a Brain Freeze and then like a Lotus Petal or an LED, we can use that to go infinite there, but I just am not feeling it. At this point, I'm way more interested in playing Fable and Aspirant than exploring any kind of Displacer Kitten strategy. At this point, it's an easy Esper Sentinel between Winds of Abandon and Swords. We have good removal, it's cheap. And then I don't really know about Jackrabbit. People try to tell me it was good, so we'll see. Again, we have a lot of cheap interactions, so let's just take a Ballista in case we end up in white-blue. Prismatic Ending's late, maybe we can do something with it. Same with Revoker, then it's all sideboard. This is another pack one with only one viable card, but we're happy with the viable card. Pyroglyph's very underrated. This is a really tough pick. In the end, I just decided to go with another one-drop, keep it cheap over Othari, because I don't know if we're going to end up in white-red yet. Easy Path to Exile, now we have two swords-ish things. And a Spellbinder, which is going to be nice for our curve. Let's pause here because we have a potential weird interaction between Walking Ballista and Agatha's Soul Cauldron that could be really profitable for us. Or we could just take a Boomer card in Fractured Identity. Which one do you think I do? Boomer. And we'll just take Fast Mana and a Chrome Mox here. And freezing here, I think there's two really viable picks. Cathar Commando, which is almost never cut from my white decks because it's a flash threat that also can just eliminate your opponent's biggest problem. It's a way to answer Kappa Canyoneer. How many of those exist? However, we have no land so far, and we just took a really weird splash potentially in Fractured Identity, so we're going to take this tap land. And of course, we get Lorna of the Third Path. We are never punished. Talon Gates is a card I think really underperforms. It can fix in a pinch, but a lot of times you just need one good attack, and being able to phase out a defender is really big game. Eagles helps us with fixing, we wheel another aggressive threat that's really a 2-drop, and then we get a few cards that we don't really care about. Oh, and a late Thraben Inspector, that rules. Here I think for a lot of people the obvious pick is this Inspiring Vantage. However, Ophelia has been a card that Sam Rolfe has been talking up big time, so I just gotta go with Sam on this one. The man knows cube. And again, we take a 1-drop. Woo. And again, we take a cheap spell. Woo. Okay, now we can pause right here. I think that there are 4 valid cards for our deck, both of the Lightnings, Plateau, and Solitude. Solitude being one of the best white cards in the cube. However, again, we already have Swords, we have Path to Exile. We're not hurting for answers. So here, I think it's actually correct to just take the fixing. We fill out our curve with a 2-drop. And again, as much as I love my 1-drops, and we could really use Giver, which is a powerful one, we need fixing, especially if we want to play this Fractured Identity and possibly a Spell Pierce. So again, another really tough pick. I think Disciplined is picking Seachrome Coast here. I think this is also another really interesting pick because we have a chance at another tapped white-blue land or Teferi. And we've been talking about Teferi combos. This could make it happen, but I think we're really far away from that plan at this point. However, we can still use Teferi. We can bounce something else from our opponent, and when we can play at instant speed and they can't, that's really powerful. And of course, we immediately see Bobble. If we pair that with Displacer Kitten and Teferi, we can draw our whole deck. Is that what we want to be doing? No, I think we want to beat down. However, I don't think we are really hurting for 1-drops at this point. So we're going to take Aven Interrupter here. And more fixing over some potential 2-drops that are off color. Now, I think that Satya is a huge pick for this deck because we have a lot of creatures with interesting ETBs, and I've never really played it, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I immediately put Satya in the main board. Late Burst Lightning is nice. We're never casting Balance, hopefully. We get the LED, which would have been the combo, and some other junk. Game 1, we get down an early Giver of Runes and just start beating down with it because what are you going to do? On turn 3, we actually have an interesting choice, which is, do we want a Skyclave Apparition, their currency converter? I say no, because they can always just discard something in response, and then we are left open if they want to reanimate. On their turn, they need action. They play Demonic Tutor, and bam, right into an Aven Interceptor. Now we're clear for Skyclave Apparition, but oh no, they cast Entomb, only they grab the worst target in Atali, because what they don't realize is that when they get these exiles with Atali, Aven Interrupter makes them pay 2 for them, so they only get one of the 2 cards, which is Seasoned Pyromancer. They discard 2 cards, but only 1 non-land leaves them with 1 token. We can use Burst Lightning on the token, and then swing in with Satya, using the Skyclave Apparition to exile the Seasoned Pyromancer, and then we can just use the Giver to give protection to whatever is blocked. We bring in a Prismatic Ending to deal with like Animate Dead or Currency Converter, but it's not a huge deal. They immediately Thoughtseize us. We lose Philia, RIP the dog, who is now on a farm somewhere upstate. We draw a Path to Exile, which is interesting, helps us deal with a variety of their larger threats. They Demonic Tutor, which is terrifying, maybe getting a Mox Jet. We don't really know what they were after. We play a Jacked Rabbit, which immediately gets cut down, which is fine. We weren't depending on Jacked Rabbit to go all the way. Not that punished for a tapped land here, and we get to play Esper Sentinel. They attack with Seasoned Pyromancer and not the token for whatever reason, which we can use the Talon Gates to make go away so we can get in for 1. Woo! We also just Pyrogoy face here because honestly, we just need to get them as low as possible, as fast as possible. Fortunately, they don't have a Reanimate spell on their turn, and they just scoop. Tough game 2, a couple turns in, they have killed our Esper Sentinel and are attacking with a Psychic Frog. Here, I think that we essentially have to bolt to force them to discard 3 cards this turn. It's not ideal, and we are going to suffer some heavy losses, but we do have cheap interaction in this deck. There are ways to get rid of a frog. We just need to draw into them. Unfortunately, we just play a couple 2-drops and pass. They play Mox into a Strix. Doesn't seem great, but off the top, we get Skyclave Apparition, which is huge. It saves us, and we can start getting in. Satya is huge here because now we can copy the Skyclave Apparition. We're going to go after the Mox Sapphire first because A, we want to limit their lands, and B, we can't keep this token anyway, so when it leaves the battlefield, we don't want to give them a 2/2. We draw into a Selfless Spirit, which is fine because it protects our entire team on top of Giver, but honestly, our opponent isn't coming back from this, and that's game 1. Game 2, we go Giver into 2 more 1-drops and definitely have board presence now. Unfortunately, our opponent plays Shieldred, which is terrifying if we hadn't drawn this Swords off the top. Whew. Then we can just shock in a Porcelain Legionnaire. We have a burgeoning army and a way to protect it with Giver. Our opponent plays Frog again, which is really, really tough for us to deal with, even with a Lightning Bolt in hand. But they follow it up with a Frantic Search and then play a Talisman, which is really fortunate for us because that takes Frog right into Lightning Bolt range. Why do they need all of this mana? Well, apparently they have a Titan, Grave Titan. Yikes. You know who doesn't care about Titan? Somebody with Talons in their hand. So we get to drop Talons into Satya. We get to make a copy. We choose Figure of Destiny because we could actually keep the token with the amount of energy generated, and we can pump it. Our opponent swings to make 2 more tokens, but then has no other play. We don't really care. Oh wait, they do have another play. It's Vendilion Click. They see Jacked Rabbit, and oh, the rabbit does nothing again. We trade it in for a Plains and swing back. It doesn't really matter because this time we get to keep our token, and we're not going to tap Giver of Runes to potentially let them get Satya. We need to keep her on board. And that's game. Match 3, game 1. We've played a couple 1-drops. They respond with a Mana Vault after a Shelldog Isle. That's fine. We have Skyclave Apparition. Again, really clean answer for what could potentially be a big problem. Our opponent playing way ahead of mana on us. Off the Spellseeker, they grab Brain Freeze, which is a quick way to end this game for them, and we are nervous. With Satya, we don't really care about Spellseeker because we're going to use Talons to phase it out anyway. So instead of using Skyclave Apparition and then leaving them behind a 3/3, we're just going to copy a Thraben Inspector. And then adding a Selfless Spirit to the board goes way too wide, way too fast for them. Some of our removal just needs to go out in this matchup, and Fractured Identity really isn't going to hit the kind of targets that we want, so those are going to go out. We're going to bring in Phyrexian Revoker, we're going to bring in Prismatic Ending to potentially throw a spanner into the works for them, and Spell Pierce on the off chance that we can cast it when it's relevant. We immediately get paid off for Prismatic Ending, getting rid of their vault for the 2nd game in a row, and we followed up with 2 1-drops. Feels great. I don't know what Lava Spur Boots is doing over there, but the answer is not much. We shock in a Porcelain Legionnaire because spooky. And then Memory Jar makes us a little nervous, not gonna lie. We main phase Philia for whatever reason. I mean, we need to get the energy, but why not just Selfless Spirit there? Anyway, it doesn't matter because we get to swing in and we are going to pump the Legionnaire. For whatever reason, we also don't play Selfless Spirit. I think I was just playing way too many mind games in this when really we just need to push against Breach. They tap out, then sacrifice a mountain for Mind Collapse, which makes zero sense until we realize that they're just trying to get their storm count up. Sadly, they do not get the right hits even after freezing themselves twice and using a memory jar, and that's game. Trophy match game 1, this is against North Singh from Sanctum of All, overall badass and absolutely destroys us this game. We keep a 1-lander with an Eagle, which we cycle to go get a plateau. Sadly, Nora has the Wasteland, she absolutely demolishes us with that, and we're really having a hard time getting back in the game. Absolutely punished by a tap land this time, but we do feel like we have a decent answer to some of what's going on by the time we get Philia on board. Skull Clamp, bounce the token. Okay, this might be working. Unfortunately, it's too little too late. We just never get to a 3rd mana, and even if we did, who knows what we would do with it. Here we're going to sideboard pretty aggressively. We don't want Porcelain Legionnaire, so Prismatic Ending comes in. We're also going to bring in Lauren because we see some artifacts. I really don't like Jackrabbit. Here, Esper Sentinel draws us a card right away, but oh no, Nora has a Legionnaire, and she's doing work with it. Fortunately, we are going to hold up Philia because I think that we can do some cool things with it with Fable. Adeline certainly doesn't hurt this strategy as we get to kill the token and then untap. We get a Lucky Bolt off the top, so we can actually just destroy the Legionnaire, and that's 1 fewer life off of this Swords for Nor. We get to bounce our Thraben Inspector, and we have a couple clues, which means that we'll be able to keep the gas tank relatively full. Lelia is a decent aggressive threat, and we are already down to 12, so hopefully we can get something going. Philia is going to get us a bunch of Goblin Shaman tokens, but then, uh-oh, is that a Parallax Wave we see? That would be absolutely devastating. So we're kind of forced into double blocking here and just hoping for a trade. Unfortunately, Nor does not have a 4th land, and this is literally the only time I've ever been excited to see Gut on the other side of the table. We discard a Figure of Destiny to get to Fairy, and that's pretty much going to lock it up. Game 3, it's my old enemy Caracas plus a Mox Pearl. Terrifying start on turn 1 and a Stoneforge Mystic. Is this a Batter Skull? Oh no, even worse. I completely forget that Cauldron Complete and creates a Germ token that's easy to Prismatic Ending away, and instead just go, maybe she won't have any more land, and hit the Pearl. Facepalm. At this point, we do have plenty of answers to a Germ token. Unfortunately, we're not drawing any of them, so we're going to play a bunch of 1-drops and then hope that we can just protection our way out of some damage from the Germ token until we can get to a Fractured Identity. We do manage to hold on for a little bit, casting Luminarch Aspirant to battle back their Luminarch Aspirant. And it's really back and forth with my life total draining quickly. Fortunately, it seems like getting rid of the Mox Pearl might have been a great decision because we're not seeing any more lands from Nor. We draw a huge Swords to Plowshares, we see a Samwise, which doesn't get anything back, it just creates another threat, and then an Adeline. Adeline plus Caracas on board is pretty terrifying for me because they can buy back Samwise or Adeline whenever they want to. I hate to have to use the swords on this Germ token, but it's kind of the only way we live, and then we can make some stabilizing blocks. We get to untap now, Fractured Identity, and start turning the corner. It's kind of wild that we could actually be in a position to win, but as long as Nora doesn't see that 4th land, we're doing all right. We get an Aven Interrupter right in time because Parallax Wave was coming down and would have just ended all of this. And that's it. That win gets me a token into one of the 64-person drafts. I'll be doing one on Tuesday, August 27th, and I will try and post a recap of that as well. I hope you liked it.